Chapter 1. Ken. I shouted over to Noodles. A crashed saucer is an oxymoron. I gripped the steering wheel of my Ford Taurus, raised my right index finger, and continued. That's just another example of stupid extraterrestrial syndrome.
Stupid extraterrestrial syndrome,
He said. Yeah, they're that smart they figured out how to get here, but were too stupid to avoid crashing into our planet. Noodles slumped into his seat.
But something can always go wrong, right?
Not if you've avoided every little particle in outer space between here and your home planet. Do you know what happens if you're going at the speed of light and you hit something the size of a pebble? You're toast. They're that smart. Noodles thought for a moment.
What if they took a wormhole?
Great. I threw my hands up in the air and slammed them back down on the steering wheel. Now you're saying they've learned how to bend space, but not how to avoid huge chunks of dirt? I did an alien or surfer dude impression. Hey, Zork, what's that, a planet? Whoa!
Then why do so many people say they've seen crashed UFOs?
I gritted my teeth and exhaled deeply. Because they're delusional. I kept trying to drive my argument home every time he brought up crashed saucers. He seems to get it only some of the time. We sat in silence as I focused on the road. Noodles is my friend Terry that I've known since childhood. We met at Quashnet Elementary School in Mashpee here on Cape Cod. We called him Noodles because he was this incredibly skinny kid, and the name stuck. I just wished he closed his mouth more often when he wasn't speaking. A bud is a bud. Unfortunately, you can't pick your friend's attributes. Cape Cod is a 60-mile-long peninsula that extends out of Massachusetts into the Atlantic Ocean. Back in 1914, the Army Corps of Engineers lopped it off from the mainland with the construction of the Cape Cod Canal. I wasn't sure if the engineers were trying to make it easier for boats to navigate up the coast or to isolate its residents from the rest of the continent. As in any island nation, you either live on Cape or off Cape. There are 3 bridges that allow us to escape our little paradise. In the summer, why would anyone sweat their ass off inland when they can come here? It's around this time of year, right after Memorial Day weekend, that things get crowded, then everyone starts to go mental. Noodles and I were driving down Route 6, which is the main highway that goes down the middle of the Cape. We passed Exit 9, or the start of Suicide Alley. It's the spot where the divided highway merges into a 2-lane crash test dummy delight of oncoming high-speed vehicles. Plenty of drunk, distracted, or suicidal people have drifted over the line and taken somebody else out with them. I've told myself, if I ever see anyone drift over the line, I'm putting my car into the ditch. Even if they're going 60 miles an hour, I don't care. Noodles was zoning out while he stared through his window.
I heard people see ghosts walking around out here.
What, dead drivers looking for the cars in the afterlife?
I passed a weird-looking guy a couple of years ago, and he was standing there at the side of the road with his thumb out. I was going to give him a ride, but when I managed to turn the car around, he was gone.
I sighed. A ghost looking for a ride.
He was pretty weird-looking.
Dude, most hitchhikers are pretty weird-looking. How's this for an explanation? He got picked up before you came back.
I didn't see any cars pass me.
Or how about he went into the bushes to take a leak? I shook my head. There aren't any ghosts. People who say they've seen one are just looking for things to support their religious views. We passed a car with a flat tire on the side of the road. Beside it was a guy pulling a jack out of the trunk. Noodles turned to scrutinize him as we went past. The guy wasn't transparent, so it wasn't a ghost having a bad day. He went back to watching the oncoming traffic.
Where are we going, Kenny?
He's been calling me Kenny since we were kids. He knows I like to be called Ken, but how the hell am I supposed to stop him? We're going to Namskakit Marsh, I said. I found a good field of phragmites to make our crop circle in. Noodles nodded his head slightly and continued to monitor the roadway. There's 2 things you should know. First, phragmites are a tall, reedy grass that you find in New England wetland areas. They're considered an invasive species and are the closest thing to a wheat field you'll find here on the Cape. Second, crop circles are total bullshit. They drive me crazy. They're just another example of stupid alien syndrome. If you had to set your spaceship down on this planet, wouldn't an Amazonian rainforest or the Grand Canyon be more interesting than a wheat field? Did they need some flour for their trip home? course, this all started when some nitwit made a circle in somebody's crops and claimed a flying saucer made it. It's not that hard to flatten a bunch of wheat using a board. The problem I have is when these aliens decided to start making intricate patterns as art projects, and people still believe they were extraterrestrial in origin. There's plenty of footage of people showing how they made these things, yet the myth won't go away. So I decided to do something about it. Noodles and I are going to make our own crop circle. Since there's no wheat growing on the Cape, a field of reeds will have to do. We're going to film the whole process. That way, when people go nuts over a crop circle appearing on Cape Cod, we can show that they're idiots for believing such a thing. It's hard enough to get people to take the idea of extraterrestrial life seriously. I want to at least root out all the obvious bullshit. I found the perfect place, just off of Route 6 in Namskakit Marsh, behind the greenhouses on Hanson Farm. Google Maps shows that near the farm there's an access road that goes out to the marsh. We got to the farm just as it was starting to get dark and noticed lights were on inside. We went down the dirt road about half a mile and pulled over. Noodles got out of the car first, turned on a big LED flashlight, and shone it up into the trees. Stark, skinny shadows whipped through the branches. I snapped at him. "Dude, turn that thing off." He smiled.
It's my Phoenix LED flashlight, 2,000 lumens.
"You can't use that. Someone's going to see us." He nodded his head and turned it off. An industrial-length measuring tape spool and a board of rope looped through holes on each end. He studied it for a moment.
What's this?
"This is what pushes the reeds down. To illustrate, I stepped on the board and held the rope taut. You lift your foot up like this to push down on the reeds. You keep stepping forward to flatten everything in front of you." I did a few quick steps as an example. "You're going to be the anchor and hold the measuring tape." I showed him my sheet of graph paper. "This is what we're making, an alien head."
That'll be cool. Everyone will think the aliens drew a portrait of themselves.
That's the whole idea.
Where do you want me?
I pointed to a couple of black dots on the paper. "You're going to stay at these anchor spots and hold one end of the measuring tape while I hold the other end and walk in a big arc. You got my infrared camera?"
It's in the back seat.
He climbed into my car while I grabbed my rubber boots from the trunk. I knew it was going to be mucky out there. He appeared a moment later holding a pair of wooden Bigfoot feet and asked,
What are these?
I finished putting on my boots and stood up. "That's another hoax I'm working on. Anybody can create fake Bigfoot tracks. I want to show how easy it is. These are just crude plywood tests. I need to make real ones out of flexible silicone." Noodles studied my handiwork.
Cool. Can I wear these?
"No, you don't want to confuse the folklore. Leave them here." Noodles dropped them next to my back tire. That would have to be an off-Cape expedition some other time. Could there be a huge primate living in the forests of North America? Or better yet, Massachusetts? Perhaps so. But, like UFOs, there's way too much false data that needs to be filtered out before we can objectively study it. It was getting darker, and the stars were starting to come out. I closed the trunk of my car and showed Noodles a map of our area. "We're standing here," I said. "Once we make it through that tree line, there's about 10 acres of reeds out there." I folded my graph paper plane and illuminated it with my phone screen. "We'll do the almond-shaped eyes first, then do the outer oval-shaped head last." Noodles took the phone from me.
How big are we going to make this?
"I want to go for at least 100 yards wide."
Cool.
I didn't realize how dark it would be out there. The moment I stepped off the dirt road into the marsh, my right foot sank into several inches of water. As I felt it flowing over the top of my boot, I thought, wonderful, now my foot's going to be soaked for the rest of the night. While I struggled with my foot, Noodles said,
Oh shit, I forgot the camera.
"Great," I said as I dismissed him with a wave of the hand. "Go get it." Noodles scampered back through the bushes to the car. I sat down on a rock, pulled my boot off, and emptied out a trickle of water. At the farm, more lights were coming on. To my left was Cape Cod Bay. I could just make out the lights of Provincetown on the horizon. I sat there and listened to the sounds of crickets, a few random spring peepers. I was beginning to enjoy my moment of solitude when I was startled by a bite on my neck. I smacked it as my whole body tightened up. Fucking mosquitoes. I heard a voice behind me in the dark.
Kenny, where are you?
"Over here," I called out. Noodles came out of the darkness and I went over to him. I pointed out into the marsh. "We need to go about 200 yards in that direction." I noted our starting point on the phone and we set out, pushing through a section of reeds. He asked me,
How's anyone going to find this?
I pointed over my shoulder and kept walking. Barnstable Airport is in that direction. Some pilot is going to see this for sure. After a few more mosquito bites, we managed to get to our starting spot. I illuminated my graph paper and showed Noodles. Okay, you're going to stand here and hold the measuring tape. I'll walk in that direction. When you see I've gone 50 yards, tell me to stop. That will be the bottom of the left eye. He studied my plan and nodded. I trudged through the reeds, pulling the tape measure behind me. I was making a decent amount of racket, sloshing through pools of water and snapping the dried reeds. I walked for maybe 5 minutes before I realized I hadn't heard anything from Noodles. I stopped and listened. Nothing. I called out softly, "Noodles!" I waited a beat. Still nothing. At that point, I just yelled, "Noodles!" I heard his voice faintly in the distance.
I said stop.
I thought, Christ, this isn't going to work. I let go of the tape measure and walked back towards him. Dude, I can't hear you.
But you said not to make too much noise.
I let out a deep breath and thought about it. Okay, where's your phone? Let's stay connected the whole time. I dialed his number, and he answered in a slow drawl, as if someone was calling him.
Hello?
Dude, I said impatiently, I'm right here in front of you.
Sorry, force a habit.
Okay, let's try this again. I followed the tape back to my original spot. Okay, how about here? I said into my phone.
Yeah, that's 50 yards.
Okay, I'm going to stomp down an arc in both directions from here. You keep the tape measure tight.
Got it.
You rolling the camera? There was a pause while I heard him trying to get a shot.
I can't see anything. You're too far away.
I thought, shit, he's right. I'll have to film myself making my own tracks, and hopefully we'll get some additional footage when everything else is done. I told Noodles, okay, let me do this section first, and when we switch places, I'll grab the camera from you.
When we're done, can we go to Kobe's to eat?
Kobe's is a fried seafood joint in Brewster that's been around forever. Yeah, fine, I said. Let's get this done. We worked for another hour, creating 2 almond-shaped areas of flattened reeds. It was a pain in the ass. I'm sure flattening wheat is much easier than flattening phragmites. You really had to use your full body weight on the board to push the stuff down. I eventually got the hang of it, stomping down small sections at a time before moving forward. I had to cradle the phone in my shoulder to hear updates on my position from Noodles. I stopped occasionally to film my handiwork. The final thing we needed to do was surround our eyes with an oval-shaped alien head. Once I got Noodles anchored in a spot, I began forming the wide arc that would be the top of the alien's head. I grinned as I thought about my big reveal. Suckers, why the hell would extraterrestrials form an alien head in the middle of the marsh in Brewster? Look, here's the footage of me making them. I pushed forward with a renewed burst of energy, mashing down reeds as fast as my foot would go. The force I had to exert on the board suddenly disappeared, and I found myself standing in an area of already flattened reeds. I thought, what the hell is this doing here? I whispered into the phone, did we just screw up? I tugged the tape measure to make sure it wasn't slack. I thought we had another 600 feet or so to go.
Nope, you should still be on the forehead.
I was standing in the middle of a curved path, a little wider than my own stomping board. Did some cranberry harvesting machine come through here? I knew I didn't make it. I reluctantly went up this new path. After walking a few yards, I heard the sound of cracking reeds, the same kind of sound I had been making. As I moved closer, I could make out the outline of another figure. I crept up to it and went, hey! The person froze. It was completely quiet out there. I could feel my heart pounding in my chest. They slowly turned around to get a look at me. The body was humanoid, but the face looked like a robot. This freaky figure asked me,
Are you a cop?
I held up my phone and shone some light in his direction. It was a guy wearing a camouflage outfit with a pair of night vision goggles on his head. I quickly regained my composure and said, No, what are you doing here? He took off his goggles.
What does it look like I'm doing?
He was dragging a rope attached to a board similar to mine. He spotted the same piece of equipment in my hands and demanded,
What are you doing here?
I'm doing the same thing you're doing, I said, and you just screwed up my design.
Your design? I've been out here for 3 hours working on a Mandelbrot set. What have you been working on?
I hesitantly said, an alien head. A Mandelbrot set are those patterns that have infinite detail as you keep zooming in on them. I wasn't going to admit to this prick that his pattern had way more detail than mine.
Oh, that's so fucking lame.
He spoke into a walkie-talkie.
Stanley, get over here.
I thought, oh shit, he's got a partner too. It's going to be 2 against 1. I quickly yelled into my phone, Noodles, come here, hurry up. Noodles replied.
What's going on?
I backpedaled a couple of steps away from the guy. I need your help. Come here now.
Where are you?
I frantically scanned the horizon for him. I couldn't see shit. So I yelled into my phone, turn on your flashlight, quickly.
You said not to do that.
Fuck that. Let me see where you are. An intense light darted around the field about 75 yards to my left. I yelled into my phone, point it to your right. 2,000 lumens of light hit me right in the face. I squinted and said, right here, walk this way. The guy in camo shouted,
Turn that fucking thing off.
I can now clearly see what he looked like. He was maybe in his 40s, tall with blonde hair and a long face. Behind me, I heard someone else yell.
Ow.
Somebody, Stanley, I assumed, pulled off his night vision goggles and squinted. He had just been hit with 2,000 lumens of light. He looked to be in his late 30s, had dark hair, and was shorter than the blonde guy. The blonde guy yelled at me.
Hey, tell your friend to turn that shit off.
I was getting pissed. He had ruined what I was trying to do, so I got sarcastic with him. Oh, Mandelbrot set. Why don't we see your Mandelbrot set?
We can still salvage it.
He said as he walked towards Noodles' light source.
Now turn that off.
I didn't bother speaking into the phone. I just screamed, Noodles, look out, he's coming after you. I heard him faintly in the distance.
Who is?
I screamed again, never mind, run, Noodles. The blonde guy sprinted down the path towards Noodles' light source, and I took off behind him. The beam of light whipped back and forth across the marsh as Noodles went into a full sprint. He let out an occasional yelp as he fled. I was sure he was shitting his pants, imagining he was being pursued by the Cloverfield monster. When the blonde guy got to within 20 yards of him, I yelled, Noodles, he's right behind you. He screamed like a little girl and yelled,
You take it.
The flashlight spiraled end over end in a big arc towards me. I picked it up and thought, why didn't he just shut the light off? The camo guy was now heading in my direction, so I took off back the way I came. While running, I tried to find the power button on the flashlight. I felt something with my thumb and pressed that. The light began to blink off and on. Wonderful, I thought. Now I can get rescued by the Coast Guard. I continued sprinting forward, the strobe light giving the marsh a surreal appearance. As I ran past Stanley, he was just standing there with his arms by his sides, with a passive expression on his face. I gripped the flashlight with both my hands and began to twist it. After a couple of turns, it came apart, and I felt the batteries bounce off my thigh. I stopped running. It was dark again. I caught my breath and looked back towards the farm lights. I could hear the faint sound of somebody pushing through the reeds out in the middle of the marsh. Hopefully it was Noodles heading back to the car. I screwed the empty flashlight back together and stuck it under my armpit. I pulled out my phone and orientated my position on the GPS map. I saw that I needed to go towards a dark clump of trees on the horizon. That's where the car was. It then occurred to me, fuck, where's my camera? It was someplace out there, in the middle of the marsh. I'd never find it. Noodles was already waiting for me by the car. He flinched as I stumbled out of the darkness and whispered,
Kenny, is that you?
I groaned and said, yeah. I hit the button on my car remote. The dome light blinked on as my car woke up. I pressed another button and popped my trunk. Noodles looked distraught.
What was that chasing me?
I slowly walked to the back of my car. There were some dudes doing the same thing we were doing. The trunk light illuminated where we were standing. Noodles had on my plywood Bigfoot feet, which were now covered in mud. Dude, why are you wearing those?
Oh, when I saw how mucky it was, I went back and got them.
You've been wearing them the whole time.
Yeah, I only had sneakers on. These work great.
I was too exhausted to yell at him. You gotta be kidding me.
What?
He stood there and looked at me like a little kid who didn't know he had done anything wrong. I was not a happy camper. All the planning I did to try to pull this off was now wasted. So much for exposing how easy it is to make fake crop circles. My legs were completely soaked, and they were throbbing from all the running. I leaned against my car in silence for a moment, beaten. Noodles peeped up.
Can we go to Kobe's now?
Fine, I sighed as I slammed the trunk shut. Let's go to Kobe's.